What's up, y'all? It's your girl Stacey the Intuitive. Welcome back to my channel. So today I wanted to come here and do a download day, okay? So I just want to quickly iterate to you guys what the plan is here on this channel. I'm going to be doing like a reading a week, an ASMR video a week, and like a download a week. Some of these themes will always like connect. I'm going to really just pick the days on my own. I'm thinking maybe every other, but that's the plan. So stay tuned. So guys, I really wanted to come here and talk about this download that has been on my heart lately. It's for all of us out there that have found ourselves in positions where we are realizing that we have been trying to control our relationships and the people in our lives. This is about us stepping into a new season of having really meaningful relationships, really deep relationships, really soulful connections and things like that. And as we step into this new paradigm of relationship, there is this energy wanting to come through of authenticity in all people involved, right? And so something that has been really coming to me lately, something that I feel that God and the divine have been emphasizing on my path, is this need to release control, right? I've been being made very privy to the ways that I try to control people in my connections and how that is very detrimental to my connections after all. Why wouldn't it be, right? Like, what was not clicking for me before, but I'm starting to understand that. And one of the biggest ways that we control people in our relationships is by setting up unnatural expectations. Now, this is not to say that you don't have boundaries. This is not to say that you don't expect your needs to be met, but it more so comes through in the way that we expect other people to show up, right? The way that we expect other people to express whatever the things are that we're hoping for them to express. For example, you're wanting someone to express their love, their affection for you or whatever, but you're looking for them to do it in a way that resonates only with you. Now, resonance is not a bad thing. You do want it to resonate with you, but you're wanting it to be based on your guidance system of what it means to show up in this way. When in reality, the way that one shows up, the way that one defines a certain way of being, the way that any energy is kind of like emulated or embodied by a person is not a one size fits all. And we can actually sabotage our connections when we approach relationships from this direction. For example, you're more of a caller, but your person's more of a your person is more of a verbal expresser, and another person expresses via actions and things. But you're thinking, well, if they're not expressing to me in this way, then they must not like me. But to them, they're putting all of this effort into trying to express it to you in this way of actions and service and things like that. This is just like a cookie cutter example, but they're wanting to show up in that way. But because you are so deeply oriented towards needing it to be shown up in another way, in the way that gives you the most control, such as verbal, you kind of rob yourself from actually acknowledging and noticing and appreciating the ways that they are showing up, because you are so focused on the lack of what you are looking for in that circumstance. And actually, without even realizing it, you are putting yourself in a lack position, because you might not be lacking at all, okay? Your partner may not be withholding any affection, any love, or anything from you at all, but rather you do not have the capability to see or appreciate the ways that they are showing up. Now, this can show up in any connection. It can show up in a friendship, in a family member, and that's the real, bread and butter about all of this, is because even just in acknowledging the different types of connections this can show up in, you kind of get an idea for the vastness, the expansiveness of individuals and connections. And then you kind of need to get to this place where you're allowing other people to give you themselves in a way. You know what I mean? And you need to be willing to receive those people in your life in such a way that, appreciates who they are rather than who you're trying to mold them into. A lot of the times we can get on our high horse and be like, I need you to show up this way. I think that in a connection in my life, I first almost wanted to show up that way as like a connection is unfolding in my life, and I wanted to show up in a way like, I need them to show up this way. But then as the connection begins to unfold, and as it has kind of unfolded, I have seen more of their authentic ways of expression show through. And I've realized that there have been a lot of times where I would have sabotaged getting to experience or getting to receive those expressions because of this go-getter controlling attitude about how I thought that things were supposed to happen. And it's only through this very moment that I'm having in connections right now, through these moments of really getting to see this energy of control and how it's really taken over my life and as it relates to connections, it's in these moments that I'm really getting to see how much I've robbed myself of really being able to appreciate and receive people in truth in the past. Now, this is not to say give people a pass for not giving to you, for not offering energy to you, for not showing up for you. People need to show up for you, deserve people who show up for you, but do not try to dictate how they show up for you. And it is important to, go ahead and express like, this is what I like, this is what I need. But beyond that, we also need to be allowing people room to grow and expand, because a lot of the time, this is like another layer of this. Maybe people have shown up in your life in one way before, but people are growing and expanding consistently, right? And they need room for that growth in order to choose to show up in different ways at different times, which is why it's going to be so important to be consciously aware of where you're wanting to control and where this feeling of control is coming from. What is the feeling being evoked when you are trying to evoke a certain action out of another person? Is it that you're feeling defeated in some way, that you're feeling disappointed? Is it that you are feeling like your needs aren't being met in some way, right? Really getting down, really down and deep into the feelings that are being evoked when you kind of start getting into this control energy, it's going to be so important for you, because a lot of the time it is rooted in this feeling of lack and something that you're not getting, when in reality you actually are getting it, when in reality it's showing up. It's a gift at your doorstep, but maybe it just doesn't have the exact wrapping that you thought it would. It has a completely different wrapping, and that makes it all the more fun, because you get to be a little bit more intrigued about what's in the box, as opposed to if it had the precise wrapping that you thought and all that stuff. The curiosity in connections is a driving factor of growth in connections, right? The way that we are able to question our partners and our friends and family and things like that in a curious manner is the exact thing that will allow these connections to have more depth, to grow more, to sink more into a place of authenticity. And we are really coming into this place collectively, to a place where everyone around us, as well as ourselves, are stepping more into this authenticity, because it's becoming harder and harder and harder to show up inauthentically, to be confined by the boxes that you've created for yourselves. And I want to say this very importantly here, is that as people are outgrowing these ways of being that have been imposed upon them, if we find ourselves being those very people trying to keep them in a box, they will pull away from us. They will gravitate away from us, because this is a time of expansion, and anyone who tries to keep you in a box is not going to resonate, right, as you expand. So I really just wanted to put this out here, because I feel like this is just kind of like a little siren call to the people that are going through this right now, because you might not be understanding how to navigate. Allow yourself some opportunity to just sit back and observe your person, the people that you are connecting with, right? Allow yourself to sit back and observe, especially in those moments where you're feeling like you want to control, like you want to dictate the unfoldment, right? Sit back. And if that person can show up, or those people, that space, that environment can show up in an authentic way that kind of reinforces and validates that which you have been wanting, but in a completely different way, then there's something to be working with there. There's something to think about there. And this, for me, this mindset has only been coming through as I have been allowing myself to sit back and stop trying to be so handsy and, like handsy and controlling, and allowing people to show up in a way that is authentic for them. And every time I have been having these moments where I'm like, bruh, if I would have done what I thought I was gonna do, if I would have put my hands all over this, I would have ruined it, I would have smeared it, I would have done the whole thing. But in reality, every single time that I've chosen to kind of sit back, I have seen things come through. And even so, let's take it off of the other person. I have seen different ways of being be evoked out of me that I would not have been able to experience had I allowed myself to run with that energy, right? So there's this big energy. Stop trying to control your connections, y'all, because you are sabotaging them, okay? If you needed to hear that, you needed to hear that. You are sabotaging your connections by trying to control them and not allowing authenticity to be the pillar of your connections. When we allow authenticity to be the pillar, we allow ourselves to be receptive, right? Receptivity should not happen in a vacuum, right? It should not happen in such a way where you're like, because feminine energy, receptivity, we all have masculine and feminine, it's all about the flow. So you are disrupting the flow every single time you try to blow it in that direction. It's like there's a natural flow, right? And this is your energy trying to blow it somewhere, and then it bumps into something else because it wasn't supposed to be there, and it bumps into all this because it wasn't supposed to be there, rather than going with the flow and receiving and allowing that energy to be a gift to you, right? So we're trying to step into flow, into receptivity, into allowance, into, you know, into that receiving the gifts that the world is trying to bring to us. So I just wanted to say that because this is a very expansive time for connections, where you're realizing the people that you're meant to be connected with, and you do not want to sabotage those faded, those soulful connections, because you are so deep in this energy of lack and control. Now, again, I am not speaking to those who are not receiving the things that they deserve, in a sense that, like, the connection overall doesn't sit well with you, or the issues are very, you know, very deeply rooted in something toxic, or, you know, obviously like mismatched, misaligned to you. That's not what I'm speaking about specifically. I'm speaking to those of you that are in connections, and, you know, the connections are growing and developing, but you find yourself constantly creating little blockages and barriers based on this notion of control, based on this this confined way of wanting to receive. We're getting out of that, okay? We're getting out of that. And I really wanted to come and share this because for me, it's just been such a special experience to be able to step back and just to like sit within my worthiness and know that I am receiving exactly what I deserve, but also allowing it to be miraculous, allowing it to be surprising, allowing it to be unexpected. You guys deserve the unexpected. There is another vibration that you allow in when you allow the unexpected to emerge, when you allow things to be of the unknown and of the mysterious vibration, instead of the controlling one, of, you know, of the limitations that come from your own perception. It's not to say that your perception itself is limited, but when you try to place your perception on another person, that's when it becomes limited, because there's supposed to be two separate perceptions or more, depending on how many connections are in your dynamic, but there's supposed to be a separate one for each person. And a lot of the time too, allowing yourself to step back rather than trying to control, because this is not even necessarily only about allowance, right? It is about allowance, but when you step back and you allow yourself to stop controlling, even if maybe your inclinations that things are not right are coming through, you allow yourself to get more clear about what is true for you. When you go and you try to put your hands all over it, like I was saying before, you try to intervene, you try to control, you oftentimes muddle up your vibration a little bit. Even so, you get yourself out of that authentic place of being able to pinpoint what is for you and what's going to feel good to you, because you start getting into that lack. So we want to stop trying to control our connections, because it is really creating this underlying, even overarching vibration of lack, of missed opportunity, of lacking receptivity, and just control, guys. So I just feel like there's some people who needed to hear this, who are on the verge of maybe like self-sabotaging their connections. And if you don't want to sabotage your connection, this is your siren sound. Hey y'all, please don't try to control the way that your person or your people are showing up. Please stop trying to control their authentic expression. Just because you would express something in this way does not mean that they're going to express it in that way. And that does not take away from the special and valuable nature of the way that they're going to show up. Allow people to challenge your mindset. In my last season in connections, I really had this blockage in my mindset where I would be like, I just can't understand why someone would act that way. But that's because I wasn't giving space for them to act in the ways that are natural to them. So for me to say, I don't understand why someone wouldn't be a verbal communicator, or why they wouldn't express themselves verbally. Right, you might not understand why someone won't express themselves verbally, but can you understand why someone would like to do it through acts of service instead? Right? We need to allow ourselves to expand beyond, because I know that the people who are receiving this message truly, if you're in the energy that I was in, it can be like literally going up against a brick wall with your own mind, because it's really hard to get past that barrier. But this is going to be valid. Let this serve as validation to you. It is possible for people to, what you're seeing to contradict with what you think that it means. I hope that came out right. But even if your reality is contradicting with the way that you perceive, you know, truth to be, with whatever you perceive the truth to be, if this is showing up differently, it does not necessarily mean that your first inclination of belief is correct. I feel like I'm getting very complex with the way I'm talking now. Essentially, just because it seems one way to you doesn't necessarily mean that it's the universal truth, y'all, right? I needed to hear that and be able to believe it in the past, because I knew that was a way of thinking that, okay, well, I could be wrong. But at the same time, I didn't know if that's something that I should believe. I didn't know if it actually stood for the truth, or if it was just like a self-soothing kind of thing, right? But I'm just giving y'all like a little message here. Allow yourself to step back. If you've been feeling this contradiction where you're like for the most part, you feel like everything could be great, but then these things come up and you're like, I'm just not sure. Step back. If a part of the dominant vibration is that you feel like things are pretty good, but there are things coming up and you find yourself trying to control because you need it to show up a certain way, step back. It's time for you to step back, because you want to maintain these connections that are meant to help you to expand. I think we're coming out of a paradigm where we aren't in connections that help us to expand because they don't challenge our way of thinking. Connections that challenge your way of thinking allow you to be inquisitive and curious and to expand in your growth. But in the past, we traded curiosity for suspicion and inquisitiveness for accusations, right? And now we're wanting to really shift that vibration to something lighter, curiosity, being inquisitive, being appreciative, right? So I really hope that this video like hits for some of y'all, because it's very important for me right now in my connections. So important. So I just wanted to get out here and say this, because I feel like it's just a message someone needs to hear. It's a message I would have needed to hear when I was deeply in my controlling energy. And I am still struggling with this control, but I'm coming out of it, and I have the conscious awareness now of when I'm wanting to control and have the ability to pull back a little bit and just get into the observer energy, because a lot of the time observing energy is akin to receptivity regardless, right? Even if you don't receive it in that situation, oftentimes your energy will shift from that sitting back, and you'll be able to give to yourself what you've been wanting to receive. And oftentimes that'll be reflected externally in a different way, right? In a divine way. And even what's more, let's take people out of the equation. God and the divine want to give to you. Be receptive. Stop trying to control how they show it up for you, how they show up for you, how they give it to you, whatever. Because there is something much grander. This vibration, this energy does not only apply to people. It's trying to reflect a larger energy, a more divine energy. Whereas in the past, maybe God gave us a past, like, okay, like she doesn't know, like, she's trying to control my little plan a little bit, but it's fine. I don't think God has time for that now. God needs us to be receptive to what we want, because we've been asking for it, we've been working for it. So sit your little bit back and allow yourself to receive, right? And don't try to place your limited perception of what God can do for you on your reality. Do you want it to be big, or do you just want it to be okay? The choice is yours, my love, okay? So thank you so much for watching. I will see you guys in my next video. Stay tuned for either an ASMR, for another reading, or another download, okay? I will see you guys next time. Also got a new hairstyle. This is just my natural hair, y'all know the vibes. We switch it up here, but see you next time. Bye.